Well, it's time for this week. Before we get started, it's time for this week's joke of the week.
All right. So what if your dog, was digging in the garden? What would you do to stop him?
You would yell at him. You would lure him away with a treat.
No. You take a shovel away.
Take a shovel.
Take a shovel away.
He's digging in the garden. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
This week's garden joke.
It's a thick.
I have to explain that to you. It's not.
No. Okay.
That's like a you type of joke, by the way. Yeah.
No.
You didn't get it. This week's garden joke is brought to you by
dogs. Typically dig in the garden with their paws. That's why.
That's why it's like
funny.
a joke. Is your refrigerator running? You better go catch it. Yeah. This week's garden joke is brought to you by Rescue.com. American-made rescue products keep your family, home, and yard protected from pests like wasps, hornets, yellow jackets, flies, ants, and more. Learn more at Rescue.com. That's RESCUE.com.
Well, there is a lot of wonderful plants that are growing in the countryside, even in your backyard, but there are some that are dangerous. Now, yeah, to us as humans, they're dangerous, but they have a very important role in the ecosystem. We're not going to talk about that aspect of it. We're going to talk about the ones that are dangerous and what to be aware of and what to look for. So if you have them or you're out and about, you can be prepared not to engage yourself with them.
Right. So we can talk about the first three are pretty common, well-known, especially poison ivy. But then there's also poison oak and poison sumac. But poison ivy is the, leaves of 3.
Let it be. Leave it alone.
I don't think I've ever been affected by poison ivy, but you have.
I will get it occasionally. Now, for those longtime listeners, you will know that I grew up on a farm in southern Illinois, and in southern Illinois, there's a lot of poison ivy. Where we're at in Wisconsin and our property in the northern ports, I don't believe there is poison ivy at all that I'm aware of. But back home, you're on the farm, you got poison ivy anytime you do a fence row or you do this or do that. My mom was very sensitive to it, meaning that we could use axes and shovels to clean out a fence row, for example, and it'd be poison ivy. We would let that sit and we'd throw it up and put it back in the shed. And in 6 months, she would take it and use it in the garden, and she would break out because that's how sensitive she was. She would get the oils that was still left on the handle from 6+ months ago. And then
I think that's I believe that's a genetic thing. Don't quote me on that. But, so you don't want to mess with poison ivy. And then poison oak, poison sumac, not as common. I think more south, I believe. Poison
oak is in the areas of the where I grew up too.
So more south, not where we are now in Wisconsin. But that's okay. So then we also have wild parsnip. This is a poisonous plant. This one will also give you a rash type situation. It is part of the parsley family, that also includes carrot, celery, and dill. And these can grow up to 5 feet tall. They have a yellow flower, kind of looks like Queen Anne's lace, but yellow. So you don't want to brush up against that. You definitely don't want to mistake it for regular parsnip. I don't know why you would dig up random plants. But don't do that.
Poison ivy is found throughout the continental United States, without the exception of Alaska and Hawaii. It appears, based on certain maps that I'm looking at right now, more of the eastern half of the state and up in the Canadian provinces on the eastern side of the country up there.
Well, there you go. So wild parsnip, that's pretty much everywhere in North America. It's throughout North America where you can find wild parsnip.
But also the other maps show it's throughout the United States. So it's everywhere. Some places it's more predominant than other places, the poison ivy and the poison oak and the poison sumac. So if you are new to going out and you're wanting to camp or you're wanting to travel or whatever, be aware of some of these things. Just don't walk in the woods or a prairie and go, well, it's nature, and then come back. And in some cases, the severity is a visit to the emergency room.
I think that also speaks to staying on trails if you are going to go to a state park or a national forest.
Which is something you do on a regular basis.
Right, or like even county parks, because most of the time if there's a poison ivy situation, they're going to take care of it. I remember I went to a state park that was recently, this was a couple years ago, it recently was a county park, and then they put it back into the state park system. I remember they're saying, like, don't go off trail, high poison ivy. So they must spray for it or mitigate it in some way. And so that speaks to reasons to stay on trail, because you don't know what's out there. And also, people want you to stay on trail. Whoever owns that land, whether it's the state or the Department of Natural Resources or the National Forest, because it prevents things like soil compaction, disturbing that ecosystem. The areas where you're walking that are deemed a trail are meant for walking. Staying on trail helps prevent a lot of things, including possibly giving yourself poison ivy.
Now, the list that we have is just a small list. There's many different plants that are dangerous to us. Wild parsnip, poison, giant hogweed. That's another one to look at. What else we've got here?
We also have stinging
metal. Yeah,
metal. And I
people will make tea out of this.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. So it's not. It's what it is the hairs. Mm-hmm. So like when you touch it, it has these like leaves that.
It's like fiberglass that gets in your fingers. Yeah. If you handled fiberglass or whatever, it kind of stings and burns. But this is to a whole different level.
Right. So the leaves have the stinging things, and so what will happen is that it'll give you a rash, and then I'm sure you probably, if it gets bad enough, you probably have to seek treatment. So you don't want to deal with that. But people do use it. They make tea out of it, and they use it for allergies, like seasonal allergies. And I remember I had a friend who was really big into homeopathic practices, and he had told me, because I have seasonal allergies, to drink stinging nettle tea, and I didn't feel like I wanted to go search out stinging nettle.
You can get organic. You can buy organic needle leaf tea.
But the thing is like the thought process is finding the stinging nettle in your area, and then it would have the allergen, like the histamines or whatever, to help with your allergies. And I never did seek out to go find stinging nettle. But yes, it does. It grows up to 8 feet tall. The leaves are about 2 to 5 inches, and they look prickly.
Yeah, they've got little tiny hairs. If you're, on a tomato plant, you see those little fibrous hairs as a seedling when you plant it. Stinging nettle kind of has that same likeness, but they are not as pleasant to touch.
Yeah, I wouldn't say very not pleasant. All right, so water hemlock. Now, this is also in the parsley family, such as carrots, parsnips, parsley, fennel. It's not related to the hemlock tree, and a lot of times it is confused with Queen Anne's lace. So you might have Queen Anne's lace like in your backyard somewhere, like maybe like by a school or a church or something that's growing that somebody had planted there. This could get confused, especially if it's near near a waterway, and it has like this hairy stem, and then it has a little what's it called, reddish purple flower. So you have to keep that in mind.
And you see, I look at these images, and if you're following along and you're looking these up as we talk about them, this looks very familiar to a lot of things that I had on the farm or you see in road ditches. Yeah,
and it could be that water hemlock, and it could be
oh, look at this pretty flower. I love you, honey. And then,
yeah, another one is pokeweed, because pokeweed it has these like large leaves that are purple, reddish purple stems. It looks really pretty. They have dark purple berries that grow like a grape-like cluster. And you're like, oh, that's pretty. Let me go touch that. And if you eat it, it is poisonous. If you touch it,
we would have that grow up in fields, fence rows. Yeah, the pokeweed. Yeah,
I think I saw some the other day.
And it would be almost like hacking. You'd have a machete, and you'd be hacking it down like a tree in order to get it out of that fence row. And we were grabbing it and pulling it.
You weren't eating it.
We weren't eating it. No.
No, that's one of these are the ones that that's one of the ones that you don't want to eat.
And you hear these stories, and we've all heard them on. If you've done any watching on YouTube in this type of genre, well, you can eat this, but it has to be picked at the precise time and boiled in the precise measure at this amount of time. And then if all is right, you'll be okay.
And like, yeah, or you like,
how many people have not have unalived because I've heard somebody, grandpa said, and then boom, that's it.
Right. And the pokeweed, you do have to, you can only eat the leaves or something like that. So
if it's that, if the world is going to end and we've got to start figuring out if we can eat this at the right time and boil it for the right amount, we've got no hope.
Then that's when you go for the pokeweed.
Yeah. We got time for one more.
Deadly Nightshade. I think a lot of people are familiar with this. It has that really dark color, shiny like berry, like a dark purple, almost black, and it does. It's gonna make you sick, and it won't. It's not typically. It's very rare. It's extremely rare, but it's one of those things where you like see it and you're like, this looks like this
a fruit, an edible fruit. Yeah,
because
I'm certain we've had this in the garden.
I'm pretty sure we have too. And it's a lot of these plants are becoming increasingly more popular as animals move around, people move around. It's not, the days where people are not traveling as much. People are still traveling more and more, bringing their kids outside. A lot of the stuff gets moved around, birds migrate, etc. So keep that in mind. Deadly Nightshade has that super dark purple berry, and it looks like kind of like a cherry almost, kind of that shape, and it's not good for you.
There you go. And that's just a handful. We could go another 2 segments on it, but I guess be aware. You can certainly go to your favorite search engine and type in deadly plants in North America or in the U.S. or in your particular country, wherever you may be listening from, and be familiar with what they are. Knowledge is power, so you're not touching, eating, or having it smeared on your hands, and then you're touching your eyes or wiping something off of your, a wound and getting infected that way as well.
That sounds awful. But you know what sounds good is we are brought to you today by our sponsor, Walton's. We know you care about where your food comes from, obviously. Canning and preserving your fruits and vegetables is great, but what about the meat? At Walton's, they have everything you need, equipment, seasoning, supplies to make sausage, jerky, and any other meat product your way to your high standards. They also have meatgistics.com, an informational site to help you make the best finished product. Walton's even has a full line of their own meat grinders, mixers, and sausage stuffers to help you go from animal to edible. Walton's everything but the meat. Use code GROW50, that's GROW50, to save 10% off your orders of $50 or more.